Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to all of you. Before proceeding further, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Mr. Zahid Hussain, admin of the group, who permitted us to use this platform to communicate with all of you today. So, this is Murk, student of Sukkur University. I'm doing my bachelor's in business administration and I'm in my last year. I'm currently working with United Nations Development Program as United Nations Civic Education Volunteer under SELF project, which is strengthening electoral and legislative processes. So today I'm here with my colleague and other UNV from United Nations Development Program, Mr. Mohsin. So I would request him to please introduce him to all of you.
Thank you so much, Murk. I'm Mohsin Ali, and I'm currently pursuing Bachelor's of Education, and I'm in my last semester right now. And I'm also working as United Nations Civic Education Volunteer with UNDP Pakistan under their CEL project, which is strengthening electoral and legislative process as a civic education volunteer. So we have been working with United Nations as a civic education volunteer since February 2020, and we were engaged directly with communities surrounded by Sakhar IBA. So our work was basically to spread awareness regarding civic education. And so, for those who don't know about civic education is basically about education about the rights, responsibilities, and about the institutions of government and how our government works. What are the institutions that are included in our government system? So we spread awareness regarding this in common people. So, and that's why we are nowadays, as you know, that we are digitalized nowadays, very much fast. We are in a fast digitalization process, and as COVID-19 has brought this situation on us, so we are working through online platforms, similar the way we are today here. So now we are spreading our awareness through online processes and online platforms. So in order to gear up our today's discussion, I would like to request Ms. Murk to demystify the term good governance and the good governance and governance generally and good governance specifically. So over to you, Murk. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Mohsin, for a very comprehensive introduction of yourself and for explaining what exactly we do and what we are doing under this project. So, like before going further and before I get started with the term what exactly good governance is, but first let me make one thing clear here. The topic that we have chosen is not intended to be a legal course on governance. Instead, we are here to discuss what exactly the good governance itself is and why is it important, how can we achieve it, right? So we are not going to get into any controversial talk related to it. We are not going to create any kind of confusion among the people. We are not going to support any political party or any country where we can say we are like supporting the good governance there or not. So it is going to be very simple session. It is very going to be like related to what exactly good governance is, and we are simply going to talk about what makes a governance as good governance, right? So as everybody is aware about the term governance, and we have already seen written on many books, articles, magazines, but the question rises here is, do we really implement what we read? So like when we take this term governance, this is not new for anyone, right? So it is as old as human civilization. So in order to understand what good governance is, first we need to understand what governance is, right? So in a democratic context or in a democratic society, it is basically a process by which the decisions are taken or implemented. Sorry. And it is also explained as the processes or the institutions involved that are used to produce the results that meet the needs of society while making the best use of the resources effectively or efficiently at the disposal, right? So for the state to perform, or any country to perform effectively, good governance or governance, we can say, is needed at all levels, right? We need to take the decisions, we need to implement it. How are we implementing it, at what criterias, at what requirements are we doing it? So this is basically what we are going to talk about today. So as I already said, for the state to perform effectively, I mean, governance is required at all levels. So we have seen, like, when I come specifically to a specific country, obviously governance play a vital role there also. Decisions are taken for the society, or for the betterment of the society, or if I talk about at the broader term, like if I talk about the country, obviously there are so many hindrances that come into their way, and those can be in terms of massive corruption, institutional clashes, lack of accountability, poor law and orders. So these are ample evidence of poor governance in any country. So in order to achieve good governance, or in order to remove or eradicate this poor governance, we need to look into certain characteristics which basically tell us what exactly good governance is, and how we can, I mean, execute under that. So we'll discuss that a bit later. So first we need to understand what actors do really play a role in governance. So we are already aware about the government. It is the major actors, one of the major actors of government, I mean, governance. And other actors may vary depending on the level of government. For example, like if we talk about rural areas, for example, other actors may include influential landlords, associations of peasants, farmers, corporatives, NGOs, research institutions, and so on. Like similarly, when we see this at the in urban level, so there are many actors which are interconnected, and those may include like the mafia. We have got different government positions, different members working over there also, right? So the
And
decision
Murk,
makers we have.
just to aid in it, also, different sort of INGOs and NGOs are also
Exactly,
nowadays,
exactly,
we
exactly,
can say that these are also
exactly.
factors.
Yes, you're right. So, and when we see it like at the national level, we have got another actors in addition, which I have already explained. So, we have got media, lobbyists, international donors, multinational corporations, etc. So, all these actors basically play a very vital role in decision making, or in influencing the decision making processes, right? So, Mohsin, I would request you to please add something into it if I have like any of the point. Yes, over
Yeah,
to you,
sure.
Mohsin.
Thank you so much, Murk. You have just give us a brief and nicely. You have just clear the idea about the good governance. So as we know that everything or in any concept there are some characteristics or factors we can say which makes
Right,
that particular thing very strong. So here similarly here in good governance there are eight major characteristics, and which are like how does a good governance look like, which determined by these the characteristics. And the good governance should be like participatory and consensus oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, equitable and inclusive, and follows the rules of law.
right,
And along with that it also assures that corruption is minimized, the views of minorities are taken into account, and that the voices of the most vulnerable part of societies are heard in decision making. And it is also sort of responsive to the present and the future needs of society. They all are like that government, specific government, is also responsive to the present and the future of the society, that how the society, how the government particular country will look like. So I will try to just briefly describe each and every characteristic. There are eight, so we'll try to be making it more clear about you. So the first that I already told you, that good governance should be participatory. Now the
right,
participation by like any kind of person from any kind of religion, gender, sexual minority, religious minorities, and everyone has like these are all the cornerstone of good governance. participation could be like either direct or through legitimate intermediate institutions or representatives. And it is also, important to point out that representative democracy does not necessarily mean that the concerns of the most vulnerable in society would be taken into consideration in the decision making process.
Right.
Participation must be informed and organized, and this
Yes,
means that
Mohsen.
freedom of, yeah,
Right. Yeah. So I just want to add one thing into it as you have talked about participation or the active participation. So basically, we can say that citizens can be considered as the partners, right? In order to
right.
take any decision or in order to make any policy or in the processes which can be used for overall the benefit of the society. So
And
we have got like so many different ideas, we have got so many different mindsets. So when all those mindsets come together, or when we get to have so many ideas coming from their way, so these would be helpful for the government itself, like for them to make a policy which is more effective and more beneficial for all of us. So that is
right.
why we can say citizens can be considered as the partners for us. Yes,
Exactly, and this means also like giving them freedom of association and
exactly.
expression on
Right.
the like one hand, and organized like sort of civil society on the other hand.
Hmm.
So when
Exactly.
they all will be like participating, obviously there could be like a disturbance or some sort of mismanagement. So here the rule of law, which is another characteristic, comes into action. Good governance also requires a sort of fair legal framework that are enforced impartially, and it also requires full protection of human rights, particularly those of minorities. And impartial enforcement of laws requires an independent and independent judiciary, and an
Right. Right.
impartial and incorruptible police force as well, which will help to achieve those rules of law, and which will also sort of gear up the decision making process in a more smoother way.
Right.
So I would also like to hear from you that what you think, that what can be like other characteristic which
Okay.
bring which can make the good governance more transparent
If
and more clearer.
Okay, okay. So as you already discussed about one of the characteristics, that was rule of law. So let me like add two more very important characteristics of good governance. The first, with which like rule of law and all the rest of the two which I'm just going to discuss here, the transparency and accountability. So these three are basically like the characteristics which work, parallel to each other. So when we talk about transparency, so this basically explains that the decision making and implementation processes follows rules and regulations. Whatever the decisions are being taken, whatever the steps are being taken, the way all those decisions are being implemented, the way all those actions are implemented on the society, those must be under an umbrella of rules and regulations, right? So it should be as transparent in a way that it should easily be available and accessible for the public who will be affected by governance policies and practices as well as their outcomes. And also it should be transparent and clear and evident in a way that it can be understandable to all the people, or to the public, and to the public, those who are like connected to it. So okay, another one that we have got is accountability. This is the most tenet, or what we say it, the key characteristic of good governance, right?
Exactly,
So
you're very
this
right.
this this includes that the government needs to be accountable for the actions taken and decisions taken, and should be accountable for what should be documented in policy statements, right? So whatever the government is doing, whatever the steps they are taking for the society, whatever the policies they are going to implement in the society, all those things are to be in a way that government itself would be accountable for it, if any kind of question or any kind of problem is faced by the society with such law or such policy, right? So okay, accountability cannot be enforced without transparency and the rule of law. It is very clear from the statement itself. And like another characteristic that I want to highlight here is responsiveness.
Yeah,
That
exactly,
basically
it is very
shows,
much
yeah,
important.
yeah, exactly. So good governance requires this characteristic also, like that organizations and the processes are designed to serve the best interest of stakeholders within the reasonable time frame. So this is also very important. I hope I'm clear with the question, Mohsin.
Yeah, you are very much right, Murk. So, as you told us about transparency and accountability and responsiveness, what do you think that consensus, the government should be, or the governance should be consensus oriented? Don't you
Right.
think like this?
Yes, it should be consensus oriented in a way that when we talk about consensus oriented, it basically explains that we have seen, like, in while taking the decision makings, or while taking some decisions, or while taking some steps, there are so many people, so many actors working in and working with the government, right? So in this processes, so everyone has got their mindsets, every actor has got their mindset, everyone tries to put their efforts, tries to come up with different ideas so that can be beneficial for the society. So like we and ultimately the basic purpose of that thing is to come at one point, right? To converge
Exactly.
at one single point. So that is only possible if all the actors working in that organization or in any platform should be consensus oriented, like they should be united at one policy or at one point which can be like in the favor of the society. We cannot
Exactly.
go with, for example, if you are having a different point of view, I'm having a different point of view, obviously we are not going to work together because there are going to be so many conflicts and problems in between us. So we need to come at
Exactly.
one point, we need to show some consensus. So does other actors, which I already told you about, like the media, lobbyists, and at different levels, like in national level or at urban level, rural level. So all of them are to come at at one point. So
Exactly.
yes.
And Murk, and it is also like sort of here the problem of equity and inclusiveness. So when a society's like well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream of society or from
Right.
the decision-making process,
Right.
and this requires all groups like the PWDs, person with disabilities, religious minorities, sexual minorities, transgenders, and other etc. etc.
Yeah.
But particularly the most vulnerable, which are in our society, and they must have opportunities to improve or and sort of participate in the decision making process to improve or maintain their well-being and well-being of the society or the
Right.
particular government as well.
Right.
And also, what do you think that how much efficiency and effectiveness is important in this regard, like in particular governance or good governance, we can say.
uh like if we really want to like be effective or efficient in this, so there are simple many public bodies or organizations which are basically working for the human rights, which are basically working to eradicate the corruption. So in order to be efficient or in order to be sustainable, we what the good governance requires, it requires to work along with the democracy, right? So
Right.
we need to also take into account with respect the what we the rule of law. We need to understand, or we need to work along with the different public bodies that I already discussed, like the different bodies which are working for the corruption, for to remove the corruption, or for the human rights, or for the
and
interest of the
uh,
human rights.
and
So
along with it
collectively.
also, Murk, along with it also, the results of that particular institution that
Hmm.
produce with any sort of like for instance the local government or any public administration department, so they all have to come up with a concrete and effective results that
Exactly.
meet the needs of the society while making the
Right.
best use of resources at their disposal. And the concept
Bil-
of efficiency in this particular context of good governance also covers the sustainable use of natural resources, not
right.
buying or borrowing or demanding resources and other materialistic things from outside, but within the particular domain, within the particular context, they are utilizing their own resources and then the protection of environment as well. So in
Exactly,
that
Mohsen.
sense, they are effective and efficient.
Yes, you are right. As I already discussed before as well, like at the start of the discussion, when when we talked about the definition about good governance. So this also
Exactly.
tells that institutions or the processes that produce the results for the best of the society in order by using the resources which are already available, and using it in such a way that they are efficiently using it and effectively using it. So this also tells what exactly the good governance is, right? So it's again about the resources that you are already having it, and you try to use it in a best possible way. Yes, Mohsen.
Yeah, so I would also like to know what our audience think. Like if they have any kind of question, comment, or whatever they want to add, or whatever in this particular domain they want to know more about it, they can also type in the comment to let us know that what they think about it.
Before like asking questions to them, Mohsen, I would love to like conclude this session with what
Sure.
overall discussion that we have gone through. So as we have already like gone through what exactly good governance is, what actors are playing role in it, and apart from that, like at what levels actors are performing or giving their best to uh, be part of the decision making processes or implementation. So we can say that like obviously it is very obvious that good governance is an ideal situation which is like difficult to achieve at its totality, right? We
Exactly.
cannot like completely or we cannot totally achieve that part, but at least we can try, even with the help of the major actors which is government. Okay, so we see that governance typically, involves well-intentioned people who bring their ideas, experiences, preferences, and other human strengths and shortcomings to the policy-making table. So, as you discussed about one of the characteristics that was active participation. So, with this, like we can come up with different ideas, experiences from different people. Like they can come up with different expertise and put all those in a policy-making table. So, in this way we can have like effective use of those ideas, and we can come up with positive results which can ultimately benefit the society. So in this
Right.
way, a good govern if we practice good governance or if we are executing it, it would be helpful for us or for any of the country to minimize the corruption, to see if the law and order is being practiced according to what it is mentioned. And we are like, if there is a lack of accountability, so it would also be eradicated. So in this way, like if you cannot completely achieve that, but to some extent we can please try with some steps to achieve it. So
Right.
yes, we have like this was all about the good governance and its importance, and we have even told you about how we can achieve it. If we have got some questions, so we can answer those as well.
Okay, so we can also respond to the questions later on. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I guess we are clear with the topic. So there is also one request to make to everybody. Obviously, like we are going through this worsen, very bad situation right now. This outbreak has challenged all of us emotionally, and we have to like stay home and we have to stay safe here. We have to take the preventive measures also. The situation is getting very worse day by day, so we are the only ones who can protect ourselves and others. So rather than going out and have parties with friends or have get indulged with gatherings or going to any mall or any shop, so it's better to stay safe at home, because you never know who is the virus carrier and who is basically having it. So it will definitely be affecting your lives also. So try to stay at home, try to stay safe. This is all about today's session. I hope you got the idea. And yes, Mohsen, if you want to give some concluding remarks, you can.
No, thank you very much. I think you have concluded in a better way. So, and last, I would say thank you very much for all the audience that gave us time and listen this discussion, and also to the admin of this group who gave us permission to come and go live from his platform. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.